Hi, this is Jamey, and this is my Sunday sit-down video for June 24th, 2018. And I'm really excited about this one. This is an idea I had after last week's video, completely unrelated to that video, but just a random idea I had. And I love the ideas that you've posted in the comments on social media and elsewhere for Sunday sit-down chats. I love them. I have them on my list if I'm intrigued by them, and I'll get to them at some point. But this is an idea that I thought of, I think, or maybe someone else suggested it, I don't really know, about... this is a list of intellectual properties, IPs, and games published by non-U.S. publishers, and sometimes actually there's a U.S. publisher on here, a couple of them. Games published by other publishers, like published games, not just design, but published games that I tried to get the rights to. So either getting the rights to an existing game or the rights to an IP. Now, why would I want to do this? For an existing game, oftentimes it's a game that's been published in another country, and they are looking for a localization partner. Or I hear about it, and I hope that they don't have a localization partner so that I can be that partner. While I'm intrigued by doing this for certain games that I just really love, that I think would be very, very successful in the U.S. and would bring joy to a lot of people, but maybe it's kind of stuck in a very small market, and I think that I can bring it to a bigger market. On rare occasions, I can't think of any examples on my list, but on rare occasions, it might be a case where I feel like a game isn't reaching its full potential because of the way it's produced, or maybe the small audience size that it has, the translations I mentioned, the foreign languages, or even the art sometimes, where I think that maybe we can do it better and bring it to a broader audience. Okay, so that's for the games. Why would I get an IP? An existing world like Harry Potter, Star Wars. Those are the big IPs. The small thing I think about for an IP is I need to be excited by it. That's kind of a requirement. I need to be excited by that IP, and I need to have some game ideas for that IP. But the bigger thing is that I think it will. Actually, it's two parts. I think it will engage and excite gamers who are already aware of that IP, or who may not be exactly aware of it, but once they hear about it, maybe they realize, oh, I've heard of that. I'm going to be excited about that. But it can't just be just a random world that exists out there, because that doesn't already have much of an audience. While I would be excited to bring a property that I love, like maybe a book trilogy that I love, that I've heard of, that not a lot of people have heard of, well, I would be excited to bring that to gamers, and maybe I would be excited to design a game in those worlds. It may not be worth like the royalty that I need to pay on that IP to get it. If it's not engaging a significant number of gamers who are excited about that specific IP. And on the flip side, there's the idea of bringing in people who know the IP but don't play games, who aren't gamers. And that audience, I would say, I'm not really interested in designing games for people who aren't already at least a little interested in playing games, because then you have to make so many sacrifices in the design, I feel like, that will end up alienating the people who do love games and are excited about playing games. So like for Harry Potter, for example, if there's a Harry Potter fan who isn't interested in games at all, I don't want to design a game for that person. I'd rather design a game for a Harry Potter fan who either is already into games and really loves games, or is at least excited about the idea of playing a Harry Potter game. That would be something that would be appealing to me. That would be an IP that would be appealing to me. Not Harry Potter specifically, but using that as an example. So anyway, maybe I'll think of some other reasons while I say this list, but let me jump right in and start with some games that I have on my table here that I tried to get the rights to, and I didn't. Or at least, actually, the first one is one that I don't think I actually tried. So this is Sushi Go. I have Sushi Go here, and I have Sushi Go here. So this is, you might not even recognize this one, because this game is now published by Gamewright. And the very original version was on Indiegogo. I think Phil Walker Harding actually ran the Indiegogo campaign. Now I think he's mostly just a designer. And I saw it, and I loved the idea of it. I love the cute aspect of the sushi. I love that it was drafting. I love that it played up to 5 players, maybe even up to, the bigger version, party game, I think plays up to 8 or 10. But it was a small Kickstarter at the time. Like, this is a very, very successful game at this point. At the time, I think the Kickstarter raised like maybe maybe $15,000, which was maybe a lot back in the day. And I saw it. I was intrigued by it, and it's, I think, maybe the main game, maybe the one game that I wish I had pursued. This is one that doesn't almost fit on this list because I wish I had pursued it and tried to get it because I really like this game. I think it's a great gateway game, and I really enjoy it. And so it's one that I wish I'd gone after. The other one on my table here is A Fake Artist Goes to New York. Now, this is a unique case, perhaps the first example on this list, among other examples, of a game that actually doesn't really fit into the Stonemaier brand. I played it, I loved it, I still love it, but it doesn't really fit into like the types of games that you think of when you think of Stonemaier games. And so I think if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't have pursued it. But at the time, I was thinking about having a very diverse portfolio of games at Stonemaier Games. And so I pursued the rights for this game, just outright. I worked through one of our ambassadors who is fluent in Japanese. I do speak some Japanese, but I don't write it well anymore. So I went through this ambassador of ours to see if the guys at Oink Games would sell us the rights. And I offered them a lot of money just for flat out to gain the rights to the game. Maybe in every area but Japan. They're in Japan, and so I can't remember exactly the details of it, but I tried to get pretty much all the rights. And they said no. They just weren't interested in doing it. So I didn't pursue it. I respected their decision. So those are the two props that I have. There are some other games on my list that I'll mention in a second. Let me get into some IPs. I'll go back and forth between IPs and games. And actually, I do have a prop for one of the IPs that I considered. This is a book series that I cherished as a kid, and as an adult, I still really admire it. It's a really beautiful series called Dinotopia. So I thought there was a time where I thought I would love to design a game in the Dinotopia world. It's a beautifully illustrated world. Like, this isn't just a cover. The whole book is filled with beautiful art. If you have kids in particular, I would highly, highly recommend this book just because it's so immersive and beautiful, and there's a whole series of books. And I thought, A, okay, this is a beautiful world to design a game in, and B, there's so much art already present in this world that I probably wouldn't need to commission more art. I would just need to pay a royalty for the existing art. So I reached out to James Gurney, who, and whenever I reach out about these IPs, I never expect to actually get a response. And I'm always surprised when I do. And James very kindly responded rather quickly too. Like, sometimes it takes like months to hear back from these guys. James responded quickly. He was very kind, and he said no. And his reason for saying no was that he was worried that. So basically, he said that he was happy that his books had brought joy to so many people, and me too. But he was done working in the Dinotopia world. He wanted to. He still paints all the time, but he was finished working in the Dinotopia world, and he thought, despite my proposal that I would not need additional art, he thought, and from his experiences, I'm sure he's had people maybe say this to him before for other properties, he thought he would end up having to work on art anyway for it, and he was like, I just don't want to do that. But he was very kind, and I still cherish the books. Wonderful book series. What else? Okay, Roald Dahl. I tried to get the rights from the Roald Dahl Foundation for a game for all of the Roald Dahl book rights. Roald Dahl is one of my favorite authors, period, and especially as a kid. I love his books. The movies made from his books, I think, are hit and miss for me because I love the books so much. But as a kid, I really, really loved the books. And I had an idea where I thought, okay, I could either design games for each book that I really love, or I could design kind of a World of Roald Dahl game that encompasses characters and themes from all of his books, all mashed into one. And so I contacted the foundation, and they actually did reply. As I was researching for this video, I looked back and remembered that they had replied to my request. And I think at the time they were working on some legal stuff regarding all the different Roald Dahl IPs so that they could license out things like board games. They didn't specifically mention board games, but they just mentioned the legal stuff behind the IPs in general. And it looks like from the email chain that I was kind of like, okay, well maybe I'll hear back from you someday. And since then, I just haven't really pursued it. This is one that I might actually, I could possibly pursue if I wanted to. And I've thought about it because I really do love his books. I just don't have any game ideas for them specifically at this time. Let's jump back to another. Well, I'll just keep going I'll go in order on my list here. No Man's Sky. You may have heard of this video game. So this is a video game that a very I hate to use the word hyped, but it really was. It was a very hyped game in terms of like the designers of the game really hyped it up. Like they were really excited and really passionate about how big of a world they were creating for this video game. It was a procedurally generated universe. So, but it's shared with other players too. So, like you'll fly around in this universe, you'll land on a planet, and the planet doesn't like really exist in code until you land there. And like the creatures on the planet don't really exist until you walk around and discover them. And after that, they're permanent. So this made me think a little bit of like legacy style games where you could fly around to different worlds, randomly generate them upon discovering the worlds, but then have them be permanent from then on. So you have this feeling of discovery. You have this feeling that you're creating and discovering this unique thing, but then it's permanent. It's not just like the next time you open the game, it's a random other world. You feel like you've discovered this thing and you can return to it. You have an attachment to it. So I had all these ideas about this game, and I think I didn't get too far in the design process, but I did get farther than many of these other IPs that I'm talking about. And I had conversations with one of the developers at the company that makes No Man's Sky. This was before the release. This is the key part of this. And they were very open to it, but kind of slow with the communication. And I kind of got the feeling that I was just talking to one dude at the company and not that maybe some of those communications weren't getting through to the rest of the company. And they were, understandably so, like they were very busy at the time trying to finalize this game that had been delayed several times. So I kind of just let it go. Like for a while I thought, okay, it would be cool to release the game at the same time as the video game. But I realized I didn't want to be beholden to another a video game publisher, because who knows when the game was actually going to come out. So I didn't end up really pursuing it, and then the video game came out, and it was not particularly well received at all. I think there are pockets of people that really appreciate it, maybe who are still playing it, but it just wasn't received well at all. And so I kind of feel like I dodged a bullet with that one. It possibly at best it gave me some ideas for Charterstone, which is a very different game, but it is a legacy game. The next one on my list is The Reckoners. So The Reckoners is a book series by one of my favorite authors, Brandon Sanderson. And I've actually thought about IPs for a few of his books. But this is actually this is another consideration. Brandon Sanderson's favorite series of mine, well, I love the first Mistborn series, but I also really love The Way of Kings, the Stormlight Archive series. I love that series, but it's the type of series that I like to read once. The books are huge, they're massive, and I don't really want to read them more than once. And I feel like if I delved into an IP like that, I'd have to consume that content over and over again to make sure I really, really know everything about it. And I didn't really want to do that. So I didn't pursue the Stormlight Archives, and fortunately another publisher, some other designers are making a game in that world, which I'm excited about playing. But The Reckoners was one that I thought, this would be a really, really cool superhero game. It's a nice twist on superhero games where, like, I forget, it's been a while since I've read it, but all the people with powers in this world are bad guys. They're all villains. Like, there's something weird about them getting powers when they get powers that makes them turn bad. And so the Reckoners are people without powers that have some special equipment that help them fight the powers, who are trying to take down all the supervillains in the world. And so it's a neat twist on that idea. And I contacted Brandon Sanderson, and I think his lawyer or his literary agent responded and said that I think he said that they were tied up in film rights at the time, and so they didn't want to pursue a tabletop game. And then about a year later, I heard that Nauvoo Games got the rights to it. They were at the Stonemaier Games design day actually with the Reckoners prototype playtesting an very early version of it. And I was a little surprised by it because it wasn't even that long after the agent had told me that they weren't interested. But I was also excited. Like for all these, I'm excited if someone works with these IPs because they're IPs that I love or I'm at least interested in, and I want to see a game in that world. So I was like a day one backer on the Reckoners campaign. I was very excited to see that game on Kickstarter a few months ago, and I'm very excited to get it. The Magicians. I don't know if you've heard of the Magician series. It's now a TV series. I personally really love the book series, the trilogy, and I hope Lev Grossman makes more books in this series because it's a wonderful trilogy. It's kind of like Harry Potter grown up, like Harry Potter in college, essentially. But it's a little bit grittier. There's a little bit of sex, things like that you don't necessarily see in the Harry Potter world. But it's a great series, and one of the, small spoiler here for the book series in case you do want to read it. But one of the really cool things about the books is that the characters end up traveling to a bunch of different worlds. There's one specific world that they end up going to a lot, but there's a ton of different worlds that they can go to. And I thought that would be really exciting for a game where you can, every time you play, you delve into a different world, or even within the same game, maybe you're jumping between worlds and using them, very, very distinct worlds, and you're using one thing in one world, and you're pulling it out of that world and bringing it to another world where it makes sense, and where it's particularly useful. So I actually did hear back from Lev Grossman on this idea, but at the time he was, I actually got a little bit of a scoop for this one that they were working on a TV series. He told me that in the emails, which I was really excited about at the time. And he said that they due to those rights being wrapped up, the game rights weren't available. But he was also very, very nice. I'm surprised by how nice so many of these people are. It's been a pleasure to reach out to these random creators who I really, really admire. One that I actually is on my list, but I don't particularly remember it. I think I saw it in my emails when I was searching for this topic, was El Grande. For some reason, I heard that the El Grande rights were available. I had never played it, but I had heard great things about it, and it fit our submission guidelines for the most part. And so, and this is one where I thought that maybe the game could use an aesthetic, I forget the word offhand, but it was fixing all the aesthetic things about it. Because the map, I don't really like the look of the map in El Grande. But I didn't end up getting the rights. I think when I reached out to them, they said, oh, we already actually have, we've given like the big box rights to another company, and they are releasing it in a month. It was like right away they were releasing it. So I went and pre-ordered it right away after I found out about that. So there are a couple games actually coming up on this list that I heard about when people were talking about them in advance of Essen Spiel that I was intrigued by, and I had Morten, my coworker in Denmark, I had him pick up these games and send them to me. One is Cottage Garden, and the other is Macroscope. So these are two games that I was intrigued by because they seem to have, at least Macroscope had a unique hook. Cottage Garden just looked beautiful, and it was designed by Uwe Rosenberg. It used the blocks that are found in Patchwork, which is one of my favorite games. And so I had Morten pick up both of these games, send them to me. And I ended up not really, I thought they were okay. But after playing them, I wasn't super excited by them. So they were games that I didn't pursue after I actually played them. Mysterium is one that I heard about, and right away I was like, that is absolutely brilliant. This is a brilliant concept for a game. I definitely want to explore this. And so I reached out to them right away, and they said that unfortunately the rights were already taken. This was, again, like maybe a few months before Essen. Some reviewer mentioned it on a list that he had heard cool things about it, the Polish version, and but unfortunately the rights were already taken. Another one in that realm is Gaia Project. In hindsight, it probably wouldn't have worked because I thought that it was going to be a 5-player game like Terra Mystica. Gaia Project is kind of a Terra Mystica in space, but it's actually only a 4-player game. But this is one where I actually work a lot with Forland, the company that publishes this. They do a lot of our German language games in Germany. And Frank over there knows how much I love Terra Mystica, but apparently the rights, because the terraforming, the Terra Mystica rights were already with, I think maybe Z-Man. They got first dibs at the Gaia Project rights, and they already had it when I heard about it and reached out about it. But actually, the one other connection there is Morten, the guy that I mentioned before in Denmark. He does the solo versions of our games, and he did the solo version of Gaia Project, which I was really excited about. Yeah, so that's another one that I missed out on. Here's another IP, actually. We have a few more left. I know this video is running a little bit long, but we have a few more left. Frank Lloyd Wright. This is a random one, but Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect. I have been fascinated with his work since I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. Really, really young. I was just fascinated by it. At the time, I thought I was going to be an architect. That was because of Frank Lloyd Wright. He inspired me, and I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. I realized pretty quickly, actually soon after that my attention for detail and my level of patience is not there to be an architect. And as an adult, I've learned that an architect rarely actually uses blueprints or is just designing stuff. An architect does a lot of businessy type stuff like any other business. But anyway, I love Frank Lloyd Wright. I loved his designs. I have written part of a novel that's based on some speculative Frank Lloyd Wright stuff. I've visited a bunch of his houses. There's one in St. Louis that he designed. I've gone up to Wisconsin. I've gone to Falling Water. I just love his work. And so I reached out to the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation a few years ago and tried to get the rights for a Frank Lloyd Wright game. And they were actually very open to it. And so I set to work designing the game. And this is actually a really odd case because I designed a Frank Lloyd Wright game, played it, and actually the playtest went really well. It was a very good first playtest. We played it again right afterward. And for some reason, I just haven't returned to it. I don't know exactly why, but at the time, it didn't excite me to return to it. I think maybe it felt a little bit more like a toy than a game. And I need to hone that a little bit better. But this is one that I might actually return to. The one tricky thing with a Frank Lloyd Wright game is I don't know if gamers who hear, oh, Frank Lloyd Wright game, maybe it would be called Falling Water, whatever it is, some recognizable term about Frank Lloyd Wright. I don't know if that would pique gamers' interest in a game. And I also don't know if it would draw in anyone who also follows or who likes Frank Lloyd Wright but isn't into games all that much. I don't know if that would draw them into the gaming space either. So I haven't pursued that one. But that's one that I might return to. A few other quick ones here. One, I actually have it on my shelf. I should have brought it up. Leaders of Euphoria is a game that for a while was a cooperation between Overworld Games and Stonemaier Games. This is actually one of our IPs, and we were going to publish Leaders of Euphoria. But then we kind of decided that it didn't really fit into our brand as a large group social deduction game. And so we encouraged Overworld to publish it, and we supported it through our e-newsletter and whatnot. So this is an odd, a case of flipped around where they have one of our IPs where we thought about signing the game and decided not to, but we're still excited about it and encouraged the publishing of it. One last one is My Little Pony. You're probably aware that we're publishing My Little Scythe. I could have had a prop for this on my desk, but I don't have it right now. We're publishing a game called My Little Scythe, which was originally a family-friendly version of Scythe with a My Little Pony theme. And when we were considering this, I reached out to Hasbro to say, hey, would you be interested in giving me the My Little Pony rights so that I can design and publish this game? Or would you be interested in the Scythe rights for this specific family-friendly game? And to both, they said no. And for the My Little Pony thing, they said no because it's a huge brand. It's tied up in so many different places. There's no way we can do that. And for Scythe, they were like, okay, no, because we don't want to publish games. Really, their answer was pretty much we want to for this age group. We want to publish toys, not games. Which this ended up being a blessing in disguise, of course, because we used the animals in Scythe and made cute little miniature versions of them. And it's not in the Scythe world, but it has all these little nods to Scythe. And so I think it worked out for the best that it's not My Little Pony themed. Anyway, that's my list. Sorry, this video is probably the longest yet, but there was a lot of different things. Oh, actually, no, I forgot one. Crusader Kings. And there actually might be another one. maybe Darkest Dungeon or something like that. That doesn't sound quite right. There have been a couple video game producers who have contacted me and said, "Hey, we have this video game. We're looking to get into board games. Would you be interested in designing and publishing it?" And Crusader Kings was one of them. And I thought of it because it's now actually on. I think it's on Kickstarter right now from a different company. They got the rights and published it. I think the reason why I didn't fully pursue this one is that I don't play a lot of video games at all. And this one seemed immensely complicated. And I think that's one of the reasons why people love it, who love this game, that there's all this complexity in this game. But it just didn't intrigue me as a designer once I saw the design. But that doesn't take anything away from the video game. I think it certainly has this audience. I think it's been very successful. It just wasn't for me as a designer or as a publisher. So yeah, that's it. So if you are watching this and you have an IP that you think we should consider someday, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Or if there's a game that's designed and published somewhere else in the world, or maybe it has like a very small audience, and you think that we should try to pursue the rights for it and publish it under the Stonemaier Games title and maybe fix it up in certain ways, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in the comments. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week to talk about something else. I have a few ideas, some that I'm excited about. We'll see you next week. Bye.